All right.
All right. Thanks for meeting with me today.
Yeah, of
I feel like
course.
it's a lot of, it feels very supportive and like you're showing me a lot of trust.
Yeah, well, I do trust you.
Awesome. One thing that's standing out to me where I want to begin is I've been thinking a lot about, do you remember that book that we read, Beginning Anew?
Yeah,
And the process of like, if you're upset with somebody, and I'm not upset with you, this is not starting, but the process always begins with watering the flower.
right.
And because this feels like kind of a vulnerable thing to do, I feel like I want to start by watering your flower a little bit
All right.
by saying that, through the course of the past few years, I think what I've really come to appreciate about you is um, the way that you bring this whole dimension to Magnolia's life that I just don't have. And we've talked about like your sense of outdoorsiness and physical activity and readiness to play and sort of prioritizing of those things, which I have tried to model because I think it's really important to be a healthy person to do all of those things. And it's something I really learned from you, but also it's something that she gets more easily from you that really like feeds her. So I think you're a really good dad.
Thanks. I'll counter water.
Yeah, do it. It sounds kind of like
Uh,
gross, right? Or it sounds like weird.
yeah, the plant, watering the plant. Uh, there's a bunch of stuff that she gets from you that I also can't provide. I love it when, she'll be like, but we didn't brush our teeth yet. And I feel like um, she's helped me a lot with my routine. And I know that you've worked hard on getting a routine built in for her. And so I'm trying to uphold that over here. And it helps me too, to have that influence in my house. And yeah, she's got a lot of like, uh, her little like I love you things. I love you infinity. I love you more like that I can tell that she's got from you the easy flowing vocabulary of love and appreciation. Yeah. And that's been it's great to be on the receiving end and to get to see these patterns of like her like self kindness, uh that I think that you've really helped to reinforce in her.
Thanks. I feel like we've really accomplished something in moving through a really hard time and a really like hostile time between us to get to this place where I think we've got like a very happy, well-adjusted, safe, attached like to both of her parents kid, and it's not, our fighting isn't getting in the way of that anymore. We're really not fighting anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So I'm curious what your experience of mediation was like.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's something I mentioned to you when we talked about it earlier. It's probably what I would want to touch on first. Um, I feel like the main thing I got from our mediator was he didn't really okay, let me back up a little bit. One thing that you and I established in our attempts at couples therapy was the tortoise and the hailstorm, or whatever it's called, pattern,
Mhm.
where sort of your reaction to stress in the relationship would be to try to more actively get answers from me and get me involved. And my reaction to that stress would be and to get go into my shell further and withdraw more and avoid. And so I built up a lot of negative expectations about our communication. A lot of, I'm gonna try to be kind to myself, but a lot of it's not worth it. I don't really know what I want, and it doesn't matter what I want because I can't have what I want anyway. However, it wasn't a true letting go either because it would become just like a snarky, biting tone, this easily offended, but not dealing with those things constructively. So what I got from our mediator, David, was when he kept on putting me in the situation where when I would try these defense mechanisms that I built up of, well, I'm not even going to bother trying to explain myself because my expectations from my experience are that you wouldn't listen or you would explain to me why I was wrong or something anyways is what I expected. But he didn't really put up with any of that. He would and then he would give me the time and the space to where I actually had to think about what I actually wanted. So instead of just this wall of negativity and expected rejection, I had to move into the positive of, well, what do I want and how can I explain that clearly? And so him forcing me to, and a lot of things I thought mattered to me turned out not to when I was given the room to what I thought I wanted and needed when the negative patterns of expectation were set aside turned out to actually be pretty different. Some good differences, some bad differences, but was able to get much more real. And I think that that was required for us to get to the place where we are now because I didn't even know what I wanted. So I couldn't even ask for it. So I couldn't be at peace with any arrangement until I had figured out what arrangement I wanted. You can't make a true compromise if only one side is bringing their needs and desires.
You said that you can't say yes if you can't say no. You mentioned that you realized that what you thought you wanted when you were behind the negative expectations of the tortoise and the hailstorm dynamic we were trapped in. You found out what you actually wanted was different. And you said some good things, some bad things. But I'm curious if any examples come to mind.
Well, I mean, one example, and I guess any domestic partnership probably has finances as a sticking point.
Hmm.
But yeah, I I guess my actual opinions about money turned out to be different than I had imagined them to be.
Hmm.
Like I feel like I am much more controlling about money than I had realized.
Hmm.
That because I'm kind of sloppy with money and I don't keep a tight budget and I keep all my, you know, keep it all in my head.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was really helpful getting real, working through some of the financial stuff in mediation and seeing that I really wanted more control and clear boundaries about money because with my like freewheeling, my so far inability to like hold to a strict budget, I just would have a lot of anxiety about like not having control. I don't like to think of myself as miserly, but I think I'm pretty controlling about money. Like it's chaos and I want it to be my chaos. It's like a messy desk or something. It's like
Oh yeah.
I know exactly where all of the in this pile of junk everything is, right?
Yeah, it was shocking to me. Would not be shocking to you, but shocking to me how much of the chaos in our home was my chaos when it came to stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when we were like cohabiting, I saw all of the chaos from I just wasn't aware of how blind I was to my own chaos. It's unavoidable now in my own home. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm the only adult here.
Right.
Not gonna blame it on the 5-year-old.
Right. Yeah, and I still have no idea how much money I have, whether we're trying to share accounts or not. So that was totally
Yeah,
not a you thing. That's my own financial poor record keeping. That
it's
was
interesting the things that we can blame on each other when you are cohabiting or in a partnership, like a romantic relationship that, then you have nowhere to hide. You
right.
take that part away.
Yeah. And like another example of things that I thought were important to me and weren't. It was hard to decouple, to like honestly decouple like my like what would you call it? Like self-righteous or, principled. I need 50% time
Mm,
from my desire to control my finances and have what felt like a fair portion of my money available to and separating those two things from like, okay, what's actually best for Magnolia and also how much money do I actually need? Keeping those things like separate. That was probably the longest process to move through for me. Like,
mm.
yeah. And I mean, I still miss her sometimes on the like 5-day breaks that we have in our current schedule. But feel like she and I's relationship is getting stronger. And, like I am watching her grow up. I'm doing it. I've got enough time to do it. It's great. So the actual need there was more room for compromise than on my initial like principled yeah, like 50% time because I'm just as good a parent or just as important of a parent. And if I have less parenting time, then that means that I'm a less worthy parent. Those things were hard to move through to the part of like what's actually best for this kid and what's actually, best for me or workable for me, to where I could actually find a compromise. And the fact that that uh child support is related to parenting time in the state of Illinois and all the formulas and stuff. It's like I've a formula. Oh, the whole thing could be reduced to math. Let's take all these feelings and relationship issues off the table and just do some math. And there's so appealing there for my mindset that yeah, it was hard to move through those to be able to honestly compromise.
How did you do it?
I mean, I feel grateful to you that even when we would skip a couple weeks, you would get us, back on track. And also, you put some time pressure on the process but I feel like as long as we were making progress, you were satisfied. And eventually, after a few sessions, when I started to see that if I could express what I wanted, it would actually be heard. You might hate it, you might be really mad about it, but it would actually be heard, and I would feel better even just like having got it out there. And no matter where the compromise landed, you got to start with cards on the table. I feel like I didn't even know what my cards. I hadn't looked at my hand in in a long time. Um, so, but I all the long breaks and the time like we took, we tried to do every week. Sometimes we would skip 2 or 3 weeks and then get back to it as sometimes because things came up in our schedule, sometimes because we were emotionally overwhelmed and needed to take longer time. But the breathing room, I think, is how, and when I would come back to the table, the things would have settled differently in my brain, like by then. So I feel like the process had room for me in that. I guess that's how I work through things, is just them in the back of my mind. The next time I'm trying to express how much parenting time I need, I find that it's come out more clearly, and where I can compromise has become more clear just because we took a break between the sessions, or.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were uh yeah, and eventually I felt like I had some ownership over wanting to keep the ship moving myself. First I was kind of doing my turtle thing of fine, drag me through this process, but having those validating experiences of being heard and actually having a better understanding of what I needed, you know, over a few sessions, I also wanted to see it through and then do it. Eventually, I was bought in to this is good.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm hearing is that like I was sort of dragging you to mediation. It was stirring up like old patterns or like I mean I started to call it like a trauma response, and I don't know if that's the right language, but sort of like something like that of like this is a broken part of our communication. She's not going to hear me even if I try, so there's no point in trying.
Right,
And so you were kind of going through the motions, but then with time, your experience changed your expectation, because what you experienced is that David, our mediator, was willing to give you time to come up with what you really wanted to say. And we did a mix of like joint sessions and individual sessions. And for me, that was pretty powerful because for a while, our joint sessions could sometimes like devolve into
right,
old patterns that were just kind of draining. And
right,
in our individual sessions, some shifts happened for me,
right.
which I can talk about, but I'm curious about what was different for you between individual time and joint time.
Yeah, I don't in the individual sessions, I mostly remember, I mean, it felt like easy rapport, and it felt like David was very knowledgeable about sort of the field of possibilities for how this could work out. Um, so he and I's rapport was really helpful in moving through stuck spots. I think like yeah, and he would sort of help me go into more the things that I felt stuck in about, big issues like the real estate portion and stuff like that.
Mm.
Uh, he would believe me. He would start from the assumption that I was right, and then uh help me break down my like feeling about I can't afford this into okay, let's whip out a spreadsheet and see if you can afford this.
But what if we get to play with numbers, Bryce?
Yeah,
You want to
totally,
stay and
totally.
play with numbers? Like, wait, what? Are we going to Excel?
Right, right. So once he did that, and we'd break out. So sort of like my nebulous anxieties about I can't afford that, or would you'd spell them out in a few different possible scenarios with numbers, and yeah, that helped me find those spaces to compromise, so it wasn't just like an emotional I can't, oh no, this is bad. It was like here's what I can, here's what I, those lines became clearer.
He did a really similar thing for me on the other side of me being really fear based. And like, I think I was just sort of like equally controlling around parenting time
Mm,
and what I thought parenting should look like. And he also like helped me make it specific, like what specifically needs to happen. Like,
right.
okay, so this is okay, but this is not okay. About baths even is what that's what's coming to mind is like baths. Like, how often does Magnolia take a bath? And that kind of played into my control over the parenting schedule because I wanted a lot of control over the parenting schedule and a lot of control over her time. And I thought I had the right to it. And so I think he somehow was able to like disavow me of that belief, that mistaken belief that I had more of a right to parenting time than you had.
Mm,
Um, and I think he brought me back to like what's really the bottom line here. Like, what are we really trying to achieve when it comes to what parenting looks like and all of it?
right, right. Helping you go from fearful feelings about giving up control,
Yeah,
um, to okay, what is the actual concrete problems, and uh what are the upsides and downsides? What are the real goals? If you move through the fear, look at the worst case scenarios, and
right.
yeah,
Right. And like, what can you actually do about it then? What are the
right,
actual agreements that you make? What do you actually need to? And then I feel like we were able to have more realistic conversations about capacity, time, interest,
right,
and also just acknowledging that like Magnolia's 5 now and her needs, our lives and her life will change as
right,
time passes. And so, like what currently, it's always changing.
right,
And like with you, with Owen and Mia, older kids at home, like we just have different demands on our time. And I think that was something that also needed to be looked at is that I have one kid at home. You've got
right,
three going to three different schools.
right.
And that pulls in different, that's a
Yeah,
different.
totally. Yeah, yeah. Getting more into that also, yeah, helped me find more willingness to compromise on my parenting schedule, because I really like that, I'm taking Owen to school 3 days a week or so, giving it that morning drive, and I feel like our kind of stay that little half-hour window, get to stay connected a lot better. I like having that as a regular like having that availability. And if I'd really push for 50% time, I might be squishing my time with him pretty thin. And he, uh, at 14, he doesn't really feel that he needs to be connected with me, probably. But I see a big difference in the times where he and I are close and spending regular time together, and the times we aren't, in his behavior and his willingness to admit when he makes mistakes or ask for help or listen to me, or it makes a big difference. So I feel like I'm doing a much better job with him because we landed on something that's, not quite 50-50, but fits better into our actual lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. There's no way around the competition between siblings.
Yeah.
It's real. There is limited time.
Yeah, and I feel like when I can fill up his bucket a little more like that, then he actually finds space to enjoy his sister instead of just competing with her constantly, which is my favorite thing when he like takes the time to play with her on purpose. She loves it so much. Yeah, she loves it. So
Yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah. How do you think our relationship changed throughout the course? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but I'm not sure that we've really like specifically named it. Like the has our dynamic changed through the course of mediation?
Yeah, it was kind of unexpected, the amount of anxiety. I didn't even know how much was there until now it's gone, you know? Like I'm not
Yeah.
scared of you, just which is weird. I don't approach you assuming that I have messed up in some way and trying to brace myself for the blowback. I also don't consult the documentation that we developed, you know? Maybe I've looked at it like two or three times since, so it is not the in my experience, it's not the actual hard copy of, the contracts and agreements.
Yeah.
It's the experience of going through them. And it's like, yeah, you could say we're on the same team and want the same things. I probably, we want happy kid, happy and safe and growing. Um, we could have said that at any point all of the way through, but the process has made it to where like I actually believe it. I think at like a physical level, like I expected to be I was so honored to get invited to your place for Thanksgiving, and I expected myself to be anxious about it, and I just never got around to feeling worried about going to your place. And it was an absolute joy to see how, my kids opened up with you, and we were able to have, you know, real and fun and somewhat emotional, vulnerable conversations and all together. Yeah, I feel like I can enjoy being in the same space as you.
So that's a change.
I mean, I would have probably said that before, but I don't know. There's some level of anxiety. I don't approach you expecting you to shoot me down and put me in my place, or I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I
Yeah.
feel like if a shoe drops, I don't have to wait for it. I'm stretching that metaphor, I guess, but I don't have to be worried about it because I know that we have a sort of like a history of like moving through those things. Like we have a little track record building of facing hard decisions and getting through them in a way that, Magnolia is okay, and even you and I are cool side effect, friendly, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Me too. Our dynamic changed in a way that I didn't understand was possible. And I had such huge blind spots about what was happening for me emotionally that I thought was just like a totally reasonable reaction or response to you or how you might be behaving or, X, Y, or Z. And then somehow, like through the process, I realized that a lot of it had to do with me um, handling my own emotions, and as opposed to kind of dealing with you out of my anxiety or my fear or my anger or my hurt, instead like being able to, I mean, I don't know, like I started to say let go of all of that, and I guess that kind of is what it is sort of like letting go of it. And um seeing you, I think that we got to that shift before the thing that I'm just about to briefly mention now, since I'm going to need to wrap up and get on the road. But maybe we could continue the conversation sometime.
Sure.
I feel like, I had, this epiphany in an individual session where I realized that I was getting like super activated whenever things would come up around the big kids. And that was old, because you and I like and have been through some scary things together. You have, and I've been along beside you, I guess, for some stretches of that.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fear about that was just sort of, stuck in the past. And um, so when I would get activated about that, it was hard to see you, to really see you behind the like fear of what could happen or what could go wrong.
Right.
And I also, maybe didn't realize. I mean, I knew I was in a lot of anxiety. That was a rough time. I struggled
Yeah.
with anxiety anyway. But the thing that I was going to briefly mention is when Magnolia got sick.
Yeah.
And I feel like Magnolia getting sick really solidified that experience of you and I have developed a pattern of being able to recover from hard things and work together to take care of Magnolia, even if we're not in a great spot. Like, and I don't even
Right.
remember where we were relationally when we had to take her to the hospital. But I do know that we had that giant fight in the hospital that seemed inevitable about the
Yeah.
parking spot,
Right.
which maybe I'll probably like, yeah, but I thought that it was like magic that it happened because it was like this release valve, and sort of in a moment where typically I would have become the hailstorm and you would have become the turtle. We didn't. We almost did. But then instead, we communicated more clearly with each other, moved through it, and then became much more effective teammates for the rest of the hospital stay,
Yeah.
was my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too. Seemed like you were trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Uh and hitting that release valve, we were able to not just have our typical eye or previously typical eye shut down and you
I rage.
hold forth, right? On my shortcomings.
Does this make you want to talk to me?
Yeah, but instead we were able to I feel like I had I was able to see a little, behind that. Like, of course, there's this building. I mean, with all of this anxiety about our daughter's well-being and all of the lack of sleep and just like the flipping terrible experience of trying to sleep in a hospital, and which you had done many nights in a row by then. Uh, I was open to there being okay, like there's something real and useful that we can talk about here. This is not about me and whether or not I suck. This is about us working together to take care of our daughter, you know?
Yeah, and then it was like magic because there were lots of elements of that story that I keep meaning to sort of like put down on paper, and because I think lots of magic things happened around that. But it makes me think of control and the ways that I have tried to control how you show up with me, with Magnolia, and how limiting that is.
Hmm.
Because in that moment, this thing shifted where instead of me trying to dictate how things happened, you became this active participant, or, whatever, it like blew up. You became this active participant. We came up with this new plan for trading off childcare in the hospital. And then you came up with these other ways to be supportive of me. And I still am like, it seems so simple, but just like your thoughtfulness around like throwing an umbrella in the car when you were trading out the car with me and you noticed it was raining. You like, I had asked you to, you noticed that my wiper blades needed to be replaced. You ended up, we kind of worked through how to handle that, but then you putting an umbrella in the car, I was like, oh, wow, it could be like this. Like you might be independently thinking about how to help support me if I'm not constantly trying to tell you exactly how to do it and how you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Maybe there are things that I miss that you would think of, which that was pretty awesome.
That was awesome. We did too good of a job, I think, because she's spoken nostalgically about wanting to go back to the hospital a couple of times.
She talks to me about it so much, how the hospital wasn't scary, it was fun, and
It
she
was,
really wants to go back because what about those toys that she got there? And it's like she completely doesn't remember the oxygen, like the things that were shitty about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So good job, I guess.
I agree. Good job. That was terrifying. And
Yeah.
let's not go back, but we did work really well together in that instance. And I'm super grateful that we have this dynamic now.
Yeah, me too. I think you're really well suited to help other people with finding this dynamic too.
Oh
But
yeah.
just throw that out there.
Give me a review. Why is that? What do you think?
I feel like you have a natural curiosity about people's like motivations, and especially, for something I always really liked about you, or like motivations might not be like, I don't know, getting underneath the surface behavior desires and getting, and you've helped me and people around you, my kids, your friends. I've seen dozens of times have conversations where they learned more about themselves by trying to, uh, I don't know, participate in a conversation with you.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's the kind of process that needs to happen. And I think in our situation, it got kind of broken by the amount of negative history we built up, and the all of my shutting down and your overbearing, or I don't know if that's the right word, if you're okay with
Nail
that,
it.
but
Do
you're
it.
getting big and
Yeah.
me getting small.
Such a kind way to frame it.
uh to where I guess I lost trust and I wasn't really able to access that part of relating with you. But it's obviously still going strong for you. Your ability to be genuinely engaged in with other people. Uh, yeah, I think that if you were my mediator, I would be able to do the kind of communicating that would help me.
Thank you. Thanks. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal that we get to be in this place right now.
Yeah,
Could have gone a really different way, but I feel like we just keep building. Are you bracing yourself?
yeah,
You are? Oh. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. This again like feels like vulnerable and intimate, and I feel honored by your support of me and your trust in me.
I feel grateful for the chance to hopefully chip in some, and really happy that I can just regular believe in you these days, not without caveats and anxieties in the way. So my pleasure.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.